This is the story of my 500-mile walk on the Camino Frances from Santiago in France across Spain to Santiago de Compostela. This was my first introduction to communal sleeping. 7 complete strangers sharing the room. Only 7. Out of Saint-Jean, steeply up the Pyrenees, spring flowers everywhere, to Horizon, the next albergue. And that was where I had my introduction to 6 a.m. starts. But the dawn was beautiful. Over the Pyrenees were the clouds below us. Even the ponies had bells, though I doubt whether you can hear them. The Virgin of Horizon gets left all sorts of presents, books, flowers, boots, and this was over the border into Spain, very relaxed. And then down the other side of the Pyrenees through the old beech forests to Roncesvalles, an old monastery. Till last year it had 1 mixed-sex dormitory for 150 people. Now it's got 4 bed cubicles. And on to Zubiri. If you led your animal round this bridge, it was said to cure rabies.
Los músicos también nos deleitarán con sus armonías ancestrales y sugerencias. Vayan pasando, pasen y vean, señoras y señores. Disfruten del día sin tiempo, del este sin norte y del príncipe sin su madre.
Yes, that rather surprised me too. It was in a place called Trinidad, just outside Pamplona. Now this is Pamplona, not like an English city. They run bulls down this street. And this is the town hall. And this is the equivalent of Boots the chemist. Oh, there's health and safety over there. After Pamplona, there's a long, steep climb to the Hill of Pardons. These figures are at the top. And this is a view down the other side. There's a long tradition of adding stones to all these markers, seeing how many you can balance. And so on to Eunate, a beautiful 12th century church. It's 8-sided. It's said that it was built by the Knights Templar for the pilgrims. It's closed on Mondays, and you can imagine we were there on a Monday. On to Puente la Reina, the Bridge of the Queen. The wife of Sanchez III built this. And on through the vineyards and the old hilltop villages. This albergue was a bit new age, but the people were very kind. Some of the crops seemed very much like Norfolk: barley, rapeseed, potatoes. And then you found olives like these, and they reminded you how far from home you actually were. Whenever I stopped, I tried to cool my feet, take my boots off. Some places didn't really appreciate this. Good bread and water and wine and meat. Enough to be happy. But any chance of a cup of tea? So, that was the first leg, the shorter leg. And the second, longer leg was from Logroño in September. This wire fence was remarkable. It was 2 or 3 miles long, with these crosses all the way woven into it. There must have been thousands. And there were often statues of pilgrims, this one looking rather lost on a traffic island. And we were now in the heart of Rioja, the most famous vine area in Spain. Look how poor the soil is, and look how beautiful the grapes are. Nice new albergue with a little pool, and a proud local with his pumpkin. We saw a few reminders of the Civil War. This one says they died for God and Spain against communism. This is me at Santo Domingo de la Calzada. They still keep a cock and a hen in this church to commemorate a miracle by Santiago, or St. James to you and me. We were always walking west, so we had to turn round to look at these sunrises. They were glorious. This is actually the local canal, prettier than the Trent and Mersey. And this is a series of locks, or had been locks, on this canal. On to Burgos, the next big city. There the albergue had recently been renovated and was very smart. There was a lovely cathedral. This door is fantastic, but it's not used. The side door is used. There were notices saying no photographs, and everybody ignored them. So when in Burgos, I did the same. These lovely carved seats. But what's that dog kennel thing for? There were spectacular colours and craftsmanship. I loved the strength in this statue, but I don't know what he's doing sitting on a bull. And that's El Cid, who's buried there. And if you thought roast chestnuts were Charles Dickens, then here's a statue in Burgos, followed by one of a pilgrim inspecting his feet. That's very true to life. It's an obsession. On to Hontanas, which was a bit of a disaster. That's an Aussie I met there called Asher. We got the last 2 bunks, and because I'm so old, she offered me the single bed, and she took that top bunk over there. I told her that's not being kind, that's being patronising. Anyway, she got bed bugs, and I didn't, so I felt pretty mean. We were passing through history, an old church, an old hostel, and another old church huddled beneath an even older castle. This was called Cuesta Matamulas, Mule Killer Slope. A lot of the churches and electricity pylons had storks' nests, but that was actually the only stork I ever saw. This used to be a bodega for keeping wine cool, but I think it's now been taken over by hobbits. See what I mean about storks? And more storks. And more tired pilgrims. And more sweaty boots. and on to Lyon, the next big city. Did say that you weren't supposed to take any photographs here, but I did. It was a bit frustrating though. It would have been so nice to have had a proper camera there. The albergue was in a Benedictine monastery. It was cramped and unpleasant. Another pilgrim resting his feet. And if you got fed up with your boots, then you just abandoned them somewhere. Most villages had a little shop like this one. This was a wonderful medieval bridge, but it's been horribly restored. This is Astorga, where I went to see the doc with my tendinitis. But it's better known for the Gaudi house. You couldn't photograph, so these are sneaky shots. And outside. The cathedral had a wonderful doorway with this carving of Christ being lowered from the cross. It was autumn, so there were autumn crocuses everywhere, tiny and delicate. The albergues varied a lot. This one at Rabanal was run by an English association, so they offered afternoon tea, very civilized, even to the foreigners. The church is 12th century. Normally a monk leads Gregorian chant there at 7, but he was having his cataracts done that day, so I missed that. This is the Cross of Iron, a place where pilgrims leave a stone and a prayer. I left flints and a cockleshell and a prayer. That might suit a keen do-it-yourselfer. In the middle of a field at dawn, what tales could that tell? A memorial to a pilgrim cyclist who was killed here. I loved the shapes and the angles. Notice how the slates have rounded corners. I wonder why. And here is a very Disney looking place. It's 12th century. More vineyards and people picking their own grapes. In the uplands, sweet chestnuts, big, ripe, tasty. And finally into Galicia, the Celtic part of Spain. Rain and bagpipes and legends, rural, remote. This man appeared to be taking his cow and his mule for a walk. This is O Cebreiro. It's 4,500 feet with a 9th century church. It all had a very crowded albergue, as you can see. It was very, very wet, although dry when I was there. It had thatched houses. And this was the oldest church on the entire Camino. A lovely atmosphere in there. With this huge font. This is the thing you dreaded seeing, the full sign. It's bad news if the next albergue is 5 miles away. And maize drying in the fields. And a stone wall that could be anywhere really in England, in the Lake District perhaps. But this cemetery could only be in Spain with a 4-drawer filing cabinet. 100 kilometres to go. I don't know what this mannequin was doing there, scarecrow. I did look to see if any of the abandoned clothes were my size. Look at this church. It came from here. It was moved stone by stone when that reservoir, or what should have been a reservoir, was built. This is in case you get lost. And the old people sit and watch the world go by. And that extraordinary purpley blue colour of that coat. These are Galician wagons. The local wagons with these interesting wheels. I've not seen anything like them anywhere else. A memorial to a guy who was killed. Sorry, he died. He was 69, only a few miles from finishing his pilgrimage. These people were cheating. Get off a bus, get the stamp, get back on the bus. And there's me arriving at Santiago. You're supposed to pat this bloke's head when you get to the cathedral, but you're not allowed to do it anymore. And there's the cathedral at night with the moon rising. Look carefully and you can see a sensor there, incense sensor for fumigating. And there's the Compostela to Paul Hughes, and Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, except that this one has Omega and Alpha, the end and the beginning, perhaps a message to pilgrims at the end of their walk.